SyncHub's offering is simple. We pull raw data from your cloud services, like HubSpot or Monday.com, and we store it in a relational database for your needs. To do this effectively, SyncHub needs to be able to detect and efficiently download data as it is modified by your cloud service. Data accessibility seems simple on the surface, but is in fact packed with nuance and technical challenges. So in this video series, we're diving into the 9 most important features that our technical team considers when connecting to a new cloud service. These considerations are something we call the Data Accessibility Checklist. If you're authoring your own API, we encourage you to keep these in mind during development in order to ensure your data is accessible to your users. So, with that in mind, let's move on to our 4th video, Single Item Retrieval. In previous videos, we have considered how an API is used to check for modified records and then request those records in bulk. However, equally important to data accessibility is the ability to retrieve a single record at a time. Ideally, this is rarely necessary, as the pages of modified items are sufficient to describe all the data we need. However, there are times when we may want to get items one by one, and unfortunately, this can cause a few headaches when interacting with the cloud platform. Let's run through an example to show the importance of having an accurate mechanism for arbitrary single item retrieval. Consider this invoice entity from a certain service's API. When we query the invoices endpoint, we get the following structure for each of the returned items. Some essential information, ID, name, created and modified date, and a few other fields. Now, let's query the invoice endpoint, just requesting the specific single entity we extracted from our last query. Notice how much more data there is? Both cases gave us information on the invoice entity, but there is significantly more information coming down with the singular request method, some of it critical. The invoices endpoint returned what we call a summary, rather than the full scope of properties. No matter how good the paging and modification filters are, if an endpoint returns summaries, we are obliged to call back to the API for every item we download. This most certainly is not accessible. If a page of results is 100 summarized entities, we then need to make 100 extra calls to get all of the data that we want. Services that provide summaries likely do so to reduce bandwidth and overall stress. Large companies that implement summaries may have even gone to lengths to optimize which data is necessary in the summary based on their customers' usage of their service. So, the decision to provide a summarized entity when querying the list method is not necessarily wrong, but for the purposes of data accessibility, which aims to simplify a user or developer's ability to retrieve data from a platform, it is certainly counterproductive. It is far more accessible to return the full scope of an entity's properties whenever it is requested. This has been an overview of single item retrieval, the 4th point on our data accessibility checklist. For more info, check out the link to our blog post in the video description, and join us next time as we dive into deletion management.